Hey, welcome. Thank you all for tuning in to the Ed Talks Daily Personal Growth and Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, the Holistic Motivator, and today's personal development session is about self control. Before we begin, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to Ed Talks Daily by going to edtalksdaily.com. Choose your favorite platform and subscribe. And if you're listening and a consistent listener, make sure that you leave a review for the podcast. That way, we'll be able to grow. Thank you for being here. Once again, you are the real MVP. Every day that I come in here, I'm here to remind you of your power. So every time that I say you have unlimited power in you, is because I know that you're a powerful being. So that's why I teach people how to release their doubts so that they can release their power. So today I'm going to be talking about the power of self-control, right? So the thing about self-control is it shouldn't be controlling. All right? So let's take that as the first note. Self-control shouldn't be controlling. And what I mean by that is self-control should be freeing. Okay? So self-control shouldn't be controlling, self-control should be freeing. And what I mean by that is we don't necessarily control ourselves so we don't do things. We free ourselves so we do the right things. Okay? So self-control should be freeing and not controlling, which means it shouldn't get you in a bubble. It shouldn't get you in a box. It shouldn't get you stuck doing this because you got to do it. It should free you to do exactly what's best for you and what would best serve you. Okay, so that's what I believe self-control is all about. Okay, so now that that's in your mind, think about a time where you said, I need to exert more self-control, whether it's in your diet and your nutrition and your whatever it is. When was one time when you said, I need to have more self-control in this area? If you know that specifically, I want you to comment below that one time where you could say, okay, I need to get self-control in this area. Okay, so for me, I've had multiple facets, and I couldn't even go into all of them. How many things that I worked on controlling myself to do and not to do, right? So self-control is not about controlling yourself, it's about freeing yourself. So let's talk about your schedule. Why is self-control about freeing yourself, not controlling yourself? Let's say you create a schedule for the day. The reason why you create a schedule is part of self-control. Scheduling allows you to control your day, but it usually people think it's binding you. Good morning. People think it's binding you to something you got to do, but really it's freeing up your time to the thing that's going to yield you the best results or the best experience. So let's say you're like, I'm going to control my day today. So I'm not going to allow this person to take an hour of my time. I'm going to make sure that I schedule out these things for my self-care, or I'm going to schedule out this activity. I'm going to go out and do this. So self-control in the form of schedule is supposed to free up your time so you could do the things that's going to yield you the best results and the best life experience, right? So that's my true definition of what self-control is about. It shouldn't be a box that contain you. It should be something that free you. So let's talk about the self of which we're discussing here. So I tend to go philosophical, spiritual, and practical on you all at the same time. So stick with me here. And basically, what I mean is the self is not you, right? The true self is your spirit. And when was the last time you controlled your own spirit? I mean, I really want to hear, did you control your spirit, right? That can even confuse you to think about. Like, how can I possibly contain and control that, right? So self-control doesn't necessarily often refer to controlling our spirit or freeing our spirit. It's usually referring to our personality or what we like to do, what we don't like to do, where we like to go, our preferences, likes and dislikes. So when somebody says, I'm going to control myself, they never talk about, I'm going to control my spirit. They're just like, I'm going to control everything that has to do with the things that I engage in, or the way people interact with me, I'm going to try to control. So I want you to look at it from a perspective is I'm going to free myself from the bonds of whatever I'm going to control myself from. Okay. So I put everything completely different because a mentality switch can turn over a faster life change. You know, sometimes you hear a cliche way of saying something. You got to self control, but free your soul is true self control. Free your spirit from the bounds of the destructive habits, from the bounds of destructive routines or destructive things that you take in, right? So for me, I never got into alcohol as much. When I was in college, I would drink when I would go to parties, right? And that would be how I turn up. However, by myself like that, sometimes I drink to turn up, but I wasn't a at-home casual drinker, right? I never really got to that point except for the one time when I was going through a rough patch in life, and I sort of found myself being a 2-month college kid alcoholic. And I wasn't necessarily an alcoholic per se, it's just that I was drinking more. So I've never been like that a day in my life. So for that 2-month period, must have been a really dark moment. Apparently, I remember feeling like I don't know what was gonna happen, and I drowned myself in sorrows. So at this point, does it look like I need self-control, or do I need freedom from alcohol at that point, right? This was a 2-month period where I kept drinking, drowning my sorrows in booze. College, college kid, we go out to a party to turn up. Drinking is part of the culture, right? And understandable, if you're in college, you're gonna drink at a party. But if you're at home and you're drinking all the time, then it means that you need to free yourself. So let's switch the word self-control to self-freedom, right? Free yourself from the bondage of. Okay, so freeing yourself from the bondage of, let's say, ganja, right? So I never really talk about ganja or weed on my platform. However, but let's say a lot of us, you'd say you hit a blunt once in a while. Now, I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with ganja. Definitely not. The benefits are amazing. But I would say that if it's bounded you to, like, I need this to feel zen or good or calm, then it means that ganja has now become a chain, right? So it isn't about necessarily addiction, or can you partake and not partake in drinking, or, you know, I'm using those primary examples, but it's about, are you enchained by it, or do you enjoy it with a choice, right? So freedom is about being able to do what you want to do without necessarily feeling you have to do something else to feel better than you're currently feeling. Okay, so my perspective on self-control is, if I continuously do this act, what will this act make of me? And also, is this act gonna release the best version of myself so that I can put that forth so I can yield the best results? Okay, so, right, so let's say weed, for example. Let's say you smoke a joint, and then you're like, okay, I just really enjoyed that. It's Friday, I'm relieving, I'm out, great. And then Saturday, you got to do it. Sunday, you got to do it. Monday, you got to do it. Tuesday, you got to do it. Thursday, you got to do it. Friday, you got to do it. Saturday, you got to do it. Sunday, you got to do it. You have been chained, right? You have been chained. If you get to, or you choose to, then it means you're operating out of free will. So this episode, it isn't about to bash anything. It's simply saying this, right? Do you want to free yourself, or do you want to be enchained, right? It's not like you're controlling yourself from not having it, but you're freeing yourself from the bondage of needing it to be in a good mentality state. So it isn't like I'm saying you can't do this or you can't eat this. I don't have the right to tell you what you can or cannot do. All I'm saying is you have a choice to free yourself. That's what self-control is, from the things that keeps you bounded. It can be ice cream. Like sometimes you got to free yourself from ice cream. And you're like, but I love ice cream. Why do I have to free myself from it? Well, do you feel like you always need it for love? Right? So somebody says, okay, how about sex? Hey, you might need to free yourself from it. Do you feel like you always need it? So for me, is I don't have a good or bad perspective, but I have a obsessive I'm thinking of, is it obsessive? Is it moderate? Is it controlled? Or is it just sometime, right? So some people are like, I'm going to control myself, self-control. And they say, I'm not going to drink this. Think about it. Porous tea. Oh, this is the weight loss tea, Black Dragon tea, forest tea. Like, hey, I'm not gonna drink tea. I'm not gonna drink tea. I'm not gonna drink tea. I'm not. Oh my God, I just did it. And then you're like, dang, you did it again. You see, I told you I couldn't trust you. I told you I couldn't trust you. And then guess what that does? I talk about self-trust and how that has to do with self-confidence. You don't confide in people you don't trust. And every time somebody tells you they're going to do something and they don't do it, you don't trust them, so you don't confide in them. So confidence in that person goes down. Same thing with you. You don't stay true. You don't trust. Confidence goes down. Okay, I have the link to the tea. Click my link in my bio, shop. You're gonna find the tea on Amazon. Super great, lowers your, uh, good for diabetes, lowers that, a lot of things. Okay, so basically, not avoiding, but creating an image in your mind. So let me be open and real for real. Okay, how about this? Okay, so the only reliever of my choice is ganja. I don't find anything wrong with it. However, I found something wrong in needing it. Okay, so I found something wrong in needing it to be at peace. And what I've done was I've done a side by side experiment down years. Like when you do consume and when you don't, how does your life feel and how does your productivity level go? Okay, so if you find, like for instance, I found out that I don't dream if I intake ganja. I don't dream that much. Then I also found out that my dreams are pretty intricate, very prophetic dreams. So I found out that I'm doing, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off between it's a trade-off between clarity. It's a trade-off between clarity, productivity, and like release and satisfaction and all the things that you get. So I found out you can naturally release the dopamine in your brain. You can naturally release dopamine. But however, the things that brings us joy and pleasure, we often do that because we don't want to take the responsibility to sit and meditate or do qigong so that we can release the dopamine in our brain, right? So we have to make that the primary source of relief. And then we can aid and get higher in consciousness and think differently and put out all these deep thoughts and get the relaxing muscle effects of it when it's time. There is a time for everything, okay? So I decided that my life is not about telling people what to do. I realized that my experiences is just saying, well, here's what I learned about how to live in your power and what diminishes that. And I found out that attachments diminishes your power, right? Whether it's a person, whether it's a substance, whether it's sweets, whether it's an action, whether it's sex, attachment diminishes your power. So we have to detach from these things because if we don't, then we start to lose our identity, our true identity, and we think that this is what I am, right? So a lot of people would say I'm an alcoholic, right? Or I'm a smoker, and that could be cigarette or whatever, or I'm this. No, that's something you're doing, right? And if you choose to not, are you that? No. So self-control is not about controlling the pseudo personality self, but it's about freeing your spirit, your true self. And I really want this to, so let's say you're drowsy and you just drunk a shot and now you're like, you can't think straight. I found out that I have more pleasantness when I'm not stimulated by caffeine or sugar or sweets or any sort of stimulants. I found out if I cultivate it myself, it's way better. So I discovered that peace cultivation by yourself is more effective than an outside influence. Okay, and I've tested it. I've seen how I felt in my productivity level, and even the call backs. Like, do you call people back? Might have to do with your habits. Okay, so let's talk about routines. And I'm gonna tell you something. I tell you a lot of details about my life. Should I stop doing that? Okay. Okay. You know, there are people out here who's using information against you, so you gotta think twice. But anyways, when I was homeless, I didn't have a place consistently to take a shower or brush my teeth. So I had no nighttime routine, whatever. It was just like I had a morning routine because I had to get out early to escape the sun. That's how I developed my 5 a.m. grind. So some of you think, hey, how did you become like this? Well, life kind of made me grow to it. I kind of figured out, how do I solve this issue that I'm having? And then I learned this. And I met this teacher and this, and I read this book and this intuition and this trouble happened and this delay. All of these things were working for me. So I had no nighttime routine. And I also slept really off because I slept in my car and I was training people and my trunk was full of workout equipment. And it was the most exciting moment of my life, as well as one of the tough moments in entrepreneurship, right? For the first time, I was running a business solely on my own efforts, making my own money while being in college. And I felt like I was actually living in my purpose, which I was. And then life hits me, and then I find myself, I was sleeping off, which means imagine sleeping in your car seat. I mean, it's not fun. And I remember how hot it used to be, so hot. And I wouldn't want to put the windows down because it might mean I might get robbed. So not a good idea. So I remember I used to sleep really off. My back would be hurting. I'd wake up with a whole bunch of tension, right? And that's why I was so out of it. That's why I couldn't even straighten up my life. Like, people would say, hey, you're so talented. You have all these gifts. You have your company and you have clients. But then they would still see me struggle. Well, because mentally, even though the environment I was in was helping me grow, like willing, ambition, drive, motivation, consistent action, but it wasn't giving me the aura that I needed to impact people's lives. Okay? It wasn't giving me the aura to impact people's lives because I was spiritually drained. I was empowered, but I was spiritually drained. The way I was sleeping put tension in my body, my emotions put tension in my body, and then doubt, fear, worry, not knowing if things are going to change for me. All of these things became stagnation, inflammation, led to depression, anxiety, right? At some point, I felt like nobody in the world cared about me, or that I couldn't depend on nobody. And imagine if you're homeless and you have a home to go back to 40 miles away with people that actually love you, but because of your indifference to them, or may say what is this thing they call, what's the word again? Not just indifference, resentment. Because of your resentment, because of something they supposedly did, you choose your own demise over, like, just talking it through. So I chose that. I said, I'm going to do it by myself. So what I learned was I adopted the same habits that I had in my car to my life when I started getting my life in order, right? So my night routine was always off. So I was always like, I need to control myself so I don't just fall asleep at night and not take care of my night routine. I mean, you got to take a shower before you go to sleep and brush your teeth. And you're like, why brush your teeth? Cavities. As a kid, your parents As an adult, you think, man, I don't have to brush my teeth. Well, cavities. Well, if you're dirty, literally, if you're dirty while you're sleeping, you're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to have uncomfortable sleep, toxic sleep. And then if your mind is overthinking, then you're going to be turning in all around. Now, that puts more tension in your body, restless sleep, tense mind, dirty body, cavity teeth. That was me, right? So I'm thinking like, I can't live my life like this. I need to get order and structure. So I realized that it wasn't the push out of that got me going. It was the pull of what my life can be like with a nighttime routine. So I told you morning routine, got it down. Now the nighttime routine is the thing that got to be done consistently over time. So I chose to do that to free myself because I realized that you can adopt a way of living from a painful past situation, and then even though you're in a new era of your life, you're repeating the same actions of your past painful circumstance. So I'm just here to allow you to see in yourself, are you repeating the actions of your past circumstance? So every time I bring up the story about my past, I want you to know that that was the past. And now is today, right? Which means now is now, right? So I am credible not because I'm incredible, but because I went through probably the same thing you're going through or went through, right? So someone says you was homeless before, and if you was homeless before, you know the struggles, right? You know how it feels. You know how it feels. But that was my cultivation period, right? So it was my cultivation period, you know? I mean, what are the great stories that you hear? Somehow, the world has it set up that if you have a dream, a goal, a vision, something that you're going to do something great, then you're going to have a great test. A great test for great things you're going to achieve. It's not going to be easy. You're going to struggle. It's going to be hard. But what you will become, right? At once, I used to hear, and then now I'm experienced. And then my life has become the experience. And this morning, I thought about it. I was like, God will drag you through the mud, right? So that you can really see your worth. And then after he drags you through the mud, you're going to be the solution. You're going to be the one to clear out the mud from your body with the knowledge that you gained. So I realized that I was dragged through the mud by life, dragged through the love by myself, which means by the actions I took, by my own life, dragged through the mud. And then I realized that if that is a growth period, then guess what that becomes? The same mud that you was dragged through, you're able to wash it off because you grew so much. It's almost like you got holy water. You became in one, and then you were able to wash it off. So I've been practicing my own podcast, and it's been changing my own life. I am so amazed by it. Here's what I meant by that. I would come here and I would pick a topic. And now I've told you guys 100 times that I'm not the only one that does this podcast. And it doesn't mean that I have a second person. It just means I'm inspired, right? Intuitively, some things I say. And then I take it and I'm like, okay, this is good. I need to apply this. And then now that I'm actually listening to my own words, I realize that I'm my own coach. And then I realized that if you go through your life, if you grow through your life, you have the lessons already. You have to tap into the lessons. Now, how many of y'all spoke like this to yourself or gave a motivational speech? You're going to find out that you know something more than you thought you knew, right? And that could be your own solution. So I'm amazed, constantly amazed by how the pains of your life soon becomes the nuggets, the gold mines, the things that really touches people's lives. Okay, so I'm able to do that in this form, but you can do that in any form. So let's go back to self-control. Self-control is about freeing yourself from not only the things that deplete your power and deplete your energy, freeing yourself from the past, from the trauma. That's all self-control. The whole work has to be done in joint. It's just freeing yourself from so many different things. Some people only focus on the action. Well, did you look at the internal scripts that I talked about last week? The internal conflicts. And then did you look at the script? And then did you look at the trauma? And I'm not saying that you need to focus on it, but I'm saying, are you working on healing that? Because some of you, you're trying to get yourself to do something, but you have an internal conflict that needs a resolution. Blood of Zeus is an anime on Netflix. Love it. And one of the characters, uh, one of the characters, dang, how did this just happen? I had the example in my head. It just flew away. Well, okay, so Blood of Zeus, Zeus being the Greek god. Mind you, this is just an anime. Doesn't mean I believe in Greek mythology. And he was pretty much telling his own son what to do during the war, right? It was like, and then what happened is he would not listen, right? So he gave intuitive block. He got intuitive messages, and he would not listen. He would just be like, nah, no, I'm not gonna listen to that. Like, what? He would do his own thing. He's like, go. His dad, Zeus is like, run, run. And he's like, fight, fight. He had so much anger in him, right? He wouldn't listen. So first of all, listen to your intuition, because some of you, you're trying to control yourself to do this, but God is saying, hey, you don't need to do this. This is where you need to look. But you're so adamant that you haven't done the work. The work is what's going to change your life. So let's keep going with the example, right? Let's keep going with the example. So he would not listen to his father. Now, next, let's go back to what happened next. He was having a battle, right? Zeus is teaching him. He's like, you're a demigod. So Blood of Zeus, a show on Netflix and anime. Zeus is like, you're a demigod, which means Zeus created a child with a just a human being. So God plus being, God within the being. So this is really not necessarily about Zeus, because I don't believe Zeus is the god of lightning or whatever. I don't believe in Greek mythology. However, that same concept, I take concepts from shows. I look at the deepness of it. It's saying that Zeus playing God in this show, just take it as an example, playing God, is giving his son an intuitive instruction, but his son ignores it. But then when he meets the father, and the father says, hey, not every demigod has this power in them, but I believe that you have this divine power, right? You have the power that's going to change the world. He's saying not every demigod has this same capability, but you do, right? And then he was like, but here's the thing. You're fighting out of anger too much, and that's not where you get your most power. He needed acquiescence and peace. So Zeus is now telling his son that you need an acquiescence and peace. But Zeus is like, you need to stop being so angry. And I was looking at it from a person like, you have anger in you. And then Zeus went to his son and kept saying that. And then Zeus talked to another god. Mind you, this is Greek mythology, so there are multiple gods. Not my beliefs, disclaimer. So the other guy said, what did he say? He said, how can you expect someone to stop being angry by teaching them the way you're teaching them? And I put it together that, yeah, you're acting out of anger. And then he was saying what the kid really needs is a father. If you're a god and you haven't been in this kid's life, you've been watching from afar, what he really needs is his father. So when he went to them, he heard that message, he went to his son, and when he's talking to his son, he said, listen, son, I never had a relationship with my father. In fact, he gave me away. This is Zeus talking. He says, in fact, he gave me away. And I don't know how to do this father thing. He was being real. And then his son just started crying. Why did you let her die? His mom just got killed by his evil brother. And then he was like, why did you let him live? And then Zeus was like, because your mom would not like it, because he's your brother. And he's like, what? That's crazy. But after he had that conversation, he really relieved his demigod power. That was so amazing in the show. I was like, wow, when you have a conversation with God, the real God, when you have a conversation with God and you actually release your tension, your traumas, your pain, and you ask the questions. And then when you realize that you have God within, so that conversation is also done within, when you realize that, then you start to heal. And then from there on, what you was trying to control yourself to do, which is not be angry, which is not fight out of anger, you will automatically achieve peace because you've healed the deepness, the root of the anger, the root of the anger. So you're like, I'm working on not being so angry. Well, what's the root of the anger? It might be a call you gotta make. It's the root. It's the root. So self-control also has to do with getting in touch with the root of what you're trying to control yourself from, or like I say, what you're looking to free yourself from. The root of the emotion, the root of the result, the root of the current experience you're having in your life. That takes learning. It takes consistent investment in your mind so that you can start to see. You got to learn how to dig deeper. And every time you watch a podcast, a show, or read a book, what you're doing is you're getting the shovel and you're getting the strength to continuously do it. The strength is the constant digging. You get to the root. And then once you get to the root, you're able to find out what's the true essence of what you're currently looking to free yourself from. Okay? So that's my message, and I'm sticking to it. It's the Holistic Motivator. And I want to thank you all for being here on this personal growth and motivation session. I dropped a whole lot today. I hope it added value to your life. I know it added value to you. So take some of this and think about this one thing. What will I free myself from today? What will I free myself from? Your mentality is going to be completely different, I promise. Just changing vocabulary can change your life. Instead of saying, what do I need to not do today so I can, no, what do I need to free myself from? And what will allow me to yield the best result and the best life experience? Okay. So if you like this podcast and you want to get constant motivation such as this, make sure you text me 561-510-9605. In addition to subscribing to the podcast by going to edtalksdaily.com. And what most important, I would like, if you have an Apple phone, go to edtalksdaily.com/rate and leave a review on Apple. Adds so much value. It's like a big thank you. And it shows who says the big thank you. And I appreciate it so much. So I would really love your support. Okay? So thank y'all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Today it wasn't as practical, but it was philosophical, right? So the practicality is the strategies. You develop your own strategies. But if I give you the mentality, then now you can develop your strategy, okay? And tomorrow I'm gonna come with more strategy on why detoxing is the number one way of getting rid of an old habit or freeing yourself from an ill habit. A detox is freeing yourself from an ill habit. All right? Yeah, smart lady. I figured that some people have Android. That's why I didn't leave the rating. But tell you what, you could always comment what you think about the podcast below one of the posts, and I'll screenshot it, and that'll be a review. And then yeah, that's a way of reviewing it or reviewing the page, right? So you can leave a review for the messages, and then I could post that, and then people can see. Okay, so you could leave. You could just comment a review. So all right, thank y'all for being here. I'm gonna keep it short because I know I can go a long time. Oh, and by the way, look, hold up. This is my song right now. Remember I was inside? I think I can make